Ready.
Yes, sir. All good.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to call to order our work session, budget work session for Saturday, November 21st, 2020. It is now 9:08 a.m. and we can get started. I would still like for us to do a Pledge of Allegiance as we begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
United States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to say good morning to staff, to the council, and to the citizens who are joining us this morning. I look forward to a very productive opportunity to see where we are as we talk about where we are with the budget and other things. At this point, I believe we will. We have a very brief agenda in the sense of there's a lot of information compacted in it, but we have the agenda for the presentation of our financial overview and a discussion of our capital projects. So with that, I would like to turn it over to city staff at this time.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, City Council, and good morning to the residents that are listening to us. About a month or so ago, the City Council asked the staff to set up this retreat or Saturday work session to discuss the capital project priorities. And as a result of that, George, Sally, Daniel, Byron, Nick, and others worked on a packet to present the projects to you all so that at the end of it all, you could determine what, if anything, you would do with the additional $18 million that were not spent on the double sheet ice arena project. And so we have a short presentation, and Daniel's going to take the lead in a moment. Byron's going to give you a really good, on what our current financial status is, and make his own recommendations on what should be done with the funding. And then Daniel's going to talk a little bit more about how we categorize the projects, the capital projects that exist, and then we'll leave it to you all to do your job and make the appropriate decisions. Daniel?
Thank you very much. So as was included in the memorandum out to you all, had provided a little bit of background in terms of where we have gotten today. And as we went through the budget process last spring, you'd noted that we have a declining fund balance in which we are not able to support all of the capital projects and programs that we have in the future years. And right after we had adopted the budget this year, a decision was made to discontinue the Iceplex project. And one of the things that had done was it freed up approximately $18 million worth of funds that could be used for capital projects. And the purpose of this discussion today is to sort of determine where we are at in regards to the utilization of that, plus our existing fund balance, the relationship with the proposed tax increases that are included within the budget in anticipation of needing additional revenue to accomplish the city's goals, and also the changing landscape of the capital projects that the city has. With the discontinuation of the Iceplex, that has over the past months led us to some discussion in regards to what the future of the next indoor sports facility is going to look like, where different facilities could be located, and overall the priorities between our wants and our needs. So today we're going to have a lot of discussion amongst the council in regards to what are the wants of the city versus the needs and how that relates to all of our finances. And beginning off, Byron is going to take us through and sort of lay out the fiscal picture in terms of where we stand today and what the decisions over the past few months have added to the discussion in terms of where the city is financially. So, Byron, if you could.
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, Mayor, Council,
Morning.
staff, and city residents. My name is Byron Matthews. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Bowie. And I come with good news this morning that we have completed our FY 2020 budget and we have received a clean opinion. And what that means is that we have stated fairly the financial condition for the city of Bowie as of June 30th, 2020. The net assets for the citywide government are $158 million. That is basically baselined and steady from last year. And I wanted to share that with you. In addition, the city's financial position is very strong. We have a fund balance of $39.2 million and an unassigned fund balance, money available for future expenditures, of $19 million. What I would like to do now is focus on today's activity and talk about capital projects and where we are there. And I would like to share my screen for a short presentation if I can. Let me know if you're seeing my screen. It should say capital projects.
Yes, I am seeing it.
Okay, great. So we'll start with a short presentation. Capital Projects Fund. The City of Bowie's Capital Project Fund accounts for all reports and all sources of revenue for the acquisition of capital facilities, except those that are financed by special assessments and the Enterprise Fund. And as we know, the Enterprise Fund is the Water and Sewer Fund, which is a fund upon itself, and it is self-contained. At this particular point in time, the city does not have any special assessment funds. How do we pay for capital projects? It's always a good question to ask. And this is how we fund our capital projects. One is through a general fund transfer, grants, debt issuance, and fund balance. And this fund balance represents the fund balance in the capital projects fund, not the general fund balance. This is a chart that represents the CIP funding over the next 5 years. And as you can tell, most of our funding is coming from general fund transfers. In our current program, we have no grant projects or no issuance of any bonds, and we will be using the fund balance. And our fund balance is our facilities maintenance program that we save approximately $500,000 per year to handle major renovations to our buildings, and that would include things like roofs, major electrical components, and things of that nature. Now, even though we show no grants in this funding chart, I want people to understand that we normally do not include grants in our program funding unless we have received the award letter from the issuing agency. But just to give a little history, in last fiscal year, we received $1.4 million of state grants for the White Marsh Park, and we received $378,000 in a federal grant for the Heritage Trail program. This is a depiction of the fund balance. Now, the difference between this and what I showed you during budget time in April of this year, I have removed all of the capital general fund transfers to capital projects. And as you can see, once we do that, our fund balance starts to go in the proper direction. And that means our fund balance is continuing to grow, and we're staying within the city's 25% expenditure requirement. Working capital. The working capital for the FY22 budget will be made of the $15 million we have in bond proceeds and another $1 million that we have in capital fund balance. So we'll be starting with $16 million for FY22. But we have a challenge. And our challenge is that in our CIPs over the next 5 years, we have expenditures estimated at $38 million. So we have a deficit of $22 million in our capital structure at this point. So what are our next steps? And that's what we're here today for. Well, we have to determine what are we going to do with our capital project program and what it would look like in the next 5 years. And to do that, we must prioritize our capital projects. Now, this prioritization can be done in many ways, and one can be regulatory. And what I mean by regulatory, these are responsibilities that the city has to comply to certain federal and state regulations. The one that comes to mind is our MS4 permit for all of our EPA responsibilities. The next one that comes to mind is our special taxing districts, which we set aside a reserve for future dredging. Constituents' demands. We must have a true understanding of what our residents actually want as amenities in the city. And asset preservation. We must take care of the assets that we have now to ensure that they will be in good shape in the coming years. Our next option would be to cancel capital projects. That would free up funding for us to concentrate on asset preservation and our regulatory responsibilities. And option number 3 is to generate additional working capital. And we will do that, or can do that, by increasing the tax rate to allow us to transfer more money from the general fund to our capital projects. I wanted to share this slide with you to let you gain an understanding of the total capital assets under the city's umbrella. These capital assets represent things like the gym, public works building, senior center, park maintenance building, and all the other structures and amenities that we have in the city. The annual depreciation for those items is $5.4 million. So in order for us to maintain those amenities at the level that would guarantee their future use, we should be at least investing 5% into preserving our assets. And with that, I will turn it back over to Daniel to get us started on the conversation.
Thank you for that, Byron. That was excellent.
Thank you, Byron.
Thank you, Mayor.
So Byron really laid out the circumstance that we are in today, and the city has been very fortunate in its fiscal history, where the growth of assessed value, the growth of the community, has put it in its place where we've accrued a lot of funds over the years, and we also have an increasing capital need. But since we are in a declining position in regards to our fund balance and have this large capital need, that really lends itself to this discussion in terms of what our needs are and what our wants are. Byron laid out in regards to making decisions in regards to individual capital projects, whether we continue on with those and understand what we would like to do, and if we want to supplement that with revenue measures to enable us to meet these needs. I'm going to share my screen now, and what this sheet shows is all of the capital projects that were included within our current 2021 fiscal year budget. So I'm going to walk through real quickly in regards to what we have. All of our majority of our projects are managed through either our Public Works Department or through our Services Department. I'm getting a little bit of echo. Could folks put their microphones on mute, please? We also have, for your reference in terms of looking at these projects, in the second column, if you've brought your budgets with you, this is the page number where each of these capital projects is listed with a more specific description associated with it. The next column, we've marked out whether it, just a quick determination from the staff, whether it is a need or a want. We have what the title of the capital project is. The next column is our current fiscal year. So these are the funds that are slated to be spent this fiscal year on each of these projects. And then each year out for anticipated spending within each of those capital items that we've got. I had mentioned that we rank these projects into wants and needs. So towards the bottom of our spreadsheet are projects that we had looked at in terms of being more of a want. And these may be things that we either are not doing today and not existing, or potentially have some capital implications that we have decisions that we make, and we can really revise the scale in terms of what the project is. Now, included in the spreadsheet that we sent out to you, we do have 2 projects that are not included in the current budget that have arisen over the past year. And the first of those is a capital line for our existing ice arena. So with the decision to discontinue the Iceplex project, we do have a need to develop a capital line item for the continued operation of the existing ice arena. So that is something that staff is working on to develop, and we hope to get progress forward on getting good estimates in regards to the maintenance of the existing ice arena. The second item that we have out here that is not included is in regards to the property at Racetrack Road. We do anticipate in 2023 to be receiving the old racetrack property, and we do not have anything anticipated in terms of a capital program associated with that property in the coming years. So with the designation of needs and wants going out over the future years, we can sort of see where some of those dollars come about in terms of the difference, in terms of if we are to make changes in regards to our capital program, where those needs and those wants fall. And that's where I want to really turn it over to the City Council at this point for your discussion in terms of how this looks in terms of your review, in terms of where things are in terms of a need and where they are in terms of a want, and where we have opportunity to maybe make changes in our capital program, or vice versa, utilizing the bond proceeds from last year's bond issuance, or utilizing additional property tax revenues. One item to start off with in terms of a want, top line here, we have land acquisition. This one is a little bit of a misnomer in terms of location. This is separate funding that we get from the state of Maryland. It is funds that we can't use on anything else other than the acquiring of land, but it does have some implications to it in regards to if we do acquire additional land, what would the additional operational maintenance or improvement costs that we have associated with that if we do expend it. So we put that in the want category. Let me pause here, and we'll turn it over to the City Council to see if there's something that jumped out at you that you want to talk about in regards to where you feel the priorities are in regards to a project and how we can look at it going forward.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thank you so very much. That was a great presentation, I think, not only for us, but for the citizens as well. So you did a great job with that. I do have a couple of general questions before we really get into some of the nuts and bolts. And that is, when we look at the budget for fiscal year 2021, and we look at the needs and the wants, and I guess my question to you is, what of this in this column already has been obligated?
Byron, you want to handle that one?
And just to express a little further, I guess what I'm asking is when we look at that, what of these have we already, because we're halfway through, so to speak, the year. Do we need to look at that as if actually that's sunk costs, i.e. costs that we will be incurring and just continue 2021, pretty much? Which ones of those have we not started on?
All right. So,
Mr. Mayor, I believe that everything that's in our FY21 column, exclusive of the land acquisition, are things that are in motion.
Okay.
Okay. So we're only looking at, we need to focus on FY22.
All right. Okay.
And through 26.
Gotcha. And that's what I thought we were. Okay. That's great. Now, Byron or staff, are there any of those that, because some of them go out years that we can hold back on if we chose to, are all of those that we have here not dependent on what we do next year? What I mean by that, and bear with me, is these are in motion. Are there any that look like have long-term implications? And I was trying to sort through that, i.e. that if we invest X amount this year, we are committed to future years.
So, Mayor, we're joined today with George Stefanos, our Director of Public Works, and Sally Hine, our Community Services Director, that have some more detail in regards to specific projects. So your question is essentially asking if there is a project that we get started on in either fiscal year 21 or fiscal year 22 that we end up being committed to more of the future years in regards to that expense?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the first one that we can look at is the Public Works main facility. Our expenditure proposed for FY21 is $910,000. I think our expenditure for FY22 will be $970,000. So we're in the process of fixing up that Public Works main facility, Mayor. It is consists of very old buildings, and I'll let George speak more about that.
Yeah. Well, with respect to do either of those planned expenditures, have future impacts? The answer is no. The stuff in FY21 is already obligated, and that was to replace the fuel system. The stuff in FY22, like Byron said, is to replace very dilapidated buildings associated with equipment storage and salt storage. So, but neither neither one of those has follow-on capital requirements.
Right. So if I can, and again, bear with me. So you're saying that 910 at 970, as we don't see any other projected costs for 22, that additional 970, and that kind of will catch you up on the facility, the Public Works main facility, doing that. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So what's I think important to understand, some of the projects are multi-year projects. The way our capital program is built on most of the pages is, you will see there's like sort of sub projects. So that 910 and that 970 are absolutely separable. They're two different projects. You know what I'm saying? One is associated with fuel system, one is associated with other buildings. So they just both are in the Public Works main facility, but the term project on general government projects, the column title, often what you see year to year are separate projects that are separable.
All right. And can I ask this question of you or Byron? Is that something that you would consider as part of that 5% depreciation in 22 of doing that? Is that part of what you would consider, for example, in 22, that 970,000 would be part of the depreciation of just trying to maintain our assets?
Not really. There's these particular reason those are so expensive is these particular facilities are end of life. So they are completely demolishing the old building and putting up a new one.
And I would say by them being there, George, that these are things that you need to have done for our Public Works.
That's correct.
Mr. Mayor, let me chime in here. As you look at our fiscal year components are all separate from one to the other. We often push things out. The question is, when you look at each project, can you afford to push something out? The only project that simply has to happen every year is the street resurfacing. I mean, if we don't do that, then we failed our basic mission to our residents. So
gotcha.
$1.9 million, 1.8, that just has to happen. But each year when we go through the budget process, when I sit down with our people, we go through our CIP projects, we determine based on the amount of money that we have and the urgency of a project, as to whether we should push it out 1 year or 2 years. What you see here now is what we believe that we simply have to do. Now, the real question is how essential is the maintenance of the senior center? How essential is the maintenance of Ken Hill and these particular, whether something is still a need or not? One of the options that you all have that may not have come across as clearly as I wanted it to is that Byron mentioned that we, in fact, transfer a certain amount of money, around $3 million or so, to the CIP fund from the general fund every year. And that helps to depreciate and diminish our general fund. One of the options that you all have as policymakers and budgeters here in the future is to use the remaining funds that were not spent for the two-sheet ice arena, to incrementally transfer that money to the CIP rather than transfer money from our general fund. That is one option of what you could do with the money, but it's all up to you all. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you, City Manager. And I think what I was trying to do in my own mind was there are a couple of things that immediately jumped out to me, and that is just making sure that our public works is supported, which I know you've already done in the budget and all, but even moving forward, that one stood out to me to make sure that as we looked at some of the things we were doing, even on how we reallocate or choose to do, I just wanted to make sure that there were a couple of things that, again, it's just like the stormwater management and public works, that those were things that I was trying to put in my mind as essential moving forward. That's what that was. And so your point is excellent. I would like to make a point right now that kind of takes us off of this before I turn back to some of the city council members. And I'd like to ask Byron. Byron, how are we looking, Mr. Matthews, with the impact, number one, of COVID over 2021, of what we may need to use in addition from our general fund at this point?
Mr. Mayor, at this point, I'm estimating that overall in 21, we're going to probably lose about $2 million of revenue based on our original projection for revenue. But on the good side of that, we're going to receive, or we have received already, $1.7 million from the county's CARE Relief Fund.
Right.
Okay, so that helps subsidize the loss in revenue from other categories such as the ice arena, our parks and grounds facilities, our highway user revenues, our hotel motel tax, our and a few other items that we will definitely lose revenue due to the pandemic. So I think we're in good shape. Financially, I think we will be very successful as we run through our time under this pandemic. The city's financial foundation is very strong. Management has really taken the range on tightening down on our expenditures, and managers are aware that we are spending cautiously. And those things that we have normally done, if they don't need to be done, we're not spending that money. We're concentrating on our core services. So financially, I think we're in pretty good shape, Mayor, and I will know more within the coming months as I start to prepare for the FY22 budget.
Byron, Mr. Matthews, I hope you don't mind me calling you Byron. No.
Okay, that's okay, Mayor. It's fine.
Okay, but what I'd like to ask you right now is it's an unfair question in the sense of, can you pull out your financial crystal ball? And if we were to guess, because we're going back into another surge and issues with the pandemic, that, on the, if we look at things that the possible worst case, and I know there's no exact here, is maybe we look at another 2 million shortfall for the second half of the year, for a total of 4 maybe for the year, worst case scenario?
Mayor, that could happen if the governor changes phases and we have to do a full lockdown as we did in March through June. We could face that. As far as my crystal ball, I wish I had one. I am looking at things as being in the phase 2. I think the county has given us good representation of what the city should be doing as far as going through this pandemic. And I'm confident that we are in a strong enough financial position to handle the pandemic.
Okay. And as we look at that, though, and I was just trying to, Byron, and like I know I put you on the spot and made you reveal your crystal ball. It put us, I'll just, again, in my mind, getting a dollar figure of worst case. But that's good. And yes, and going out of sequence here a little bit, I do want to thank our city manager, the assistant city manager, all of our managers, our staff, everyone. I do believe you have done an excellent job financially in trying to make sure that we address the pandemic and financially keep the city moving financially in a good position and in a good way moving forward, and making sure that we're taking care of all the essential and needed services. So thank you to all of you for doing that at this point. I think what I'd like to do is I've taken a bit of time now, but you've answered some very broad questions for me. But I think it's appropriate to give other members of the council at this time a chance to speak in general as we move forward. With that being said, I will try to do it in a process as we go through. So I'll start off with our council members at large. And so Councilwoman Harrison, any comments or thoughts at this point?
I do have comments and thoughts, but my first question is, how do we want to tackle this in regard to process? Do we want to go through, we can all sit and discuss everything and provide our thoughts, but what's the process as far as going through? What do you think is the best way to approach this, Mr. Mayor, in regards to, I pretty much feel like we go with all the needs that are listed, but in regards to the wants, how do we go through that, and what do you feel is the best way to do that?
Well, I think one of the things to do is just as you just said, if we look at the needs and just consider that those are things that we need to do.
Right.
The one need that we will need to talk about at some point is the ice arena.
Right.
But the need there is something that we have a task force that's kind of looking at. And so I don't believe at this point we can do much on that. I think it'd be fair to wait to get their feedback.
Right.
I think if we go through 39 through 48, the other thing is on the needs with the racetrack road. I do believe we will be getting support. And I'm jumping around, and bear with me, Councilwoman.
No,
I think with that, we are going to be getting funding and support initially from the state.
Correct, we will.
And so those two, I think we don't necessarily have to address. And I think you're right. If we start looking at the needs versus the wants, we should start with the wants and just see how we want to move forward with some of those. So I think that's a good point. And I think if we could just go through those line by line, if we do that line by line, I think, and get the input also from the city staff on the implications, because I thought they did a great job of saying, okay, if we do this, well, but you end up with maintenance and other things, and just seeing what those are. I would like to see us go that way, as you just mentioned, going by the wants and going through those. That's my thought, and just kind of walking through those with city staff and with the council as to what they do, because I would like to know who has a real strong feeling about something from a needs, a wants basis. And so I think that would be the best way.
Okay.
Your thoughts, Councilwoman?
Somebody else wanted to say something? Oh, no, I think that sounds great. And yeah, I definitely want to hear from, I mean, my thing is kind of, what can we do as far as, I mean, I would hate to get rid of any of these, right?
Right.
So, and I understand the deficit is $22 million. So if we kept them all in next year's budget. So what about incrementally funding some of them and then, actually pushing them out until, say, 2024, just doing an incremental funding for 2022, keeping, say, maybe 3 or 4, whatever we can afford to pay for now, and then with the others, just fund them incrementally, put a little bit of money aside for each one until we feel like we can fund it, say, in 2 or 3 years. Is that something we could do, Byron?
Yes, that is one approach. I just want to specifically remind Council, as Al was referring to our situation, and in the capital projects, we have this $22 million deficit.
Right.
That's even with the bond proceeds. That's including that. And I think we have to make the hard decisions in our current structure, what things we're just going to cancel and do away with.
Oh, okay.
Okay. My premise is that, from what I hear, we want to maintain this tax rate at 40 cents per $100.
Correct.
And if that is true, then we have to realize that we will not be in the position to fund future capital projects. And that's why in my first, in one of my graphs, I've showed you the effect of the fund balance without these transfers to capital projects. So I think we have to be real lean and mean on the capital projects, and we have to do it in a prioritized fashion. At some point in 26, we will have to make another decision on how we go forward. Will there be a tax increase? Is there going to be a predetermined amount of money from the general fund to fund our capital projects? There is about $809,000 per 1 penny on the tax rate. So we could say in 2026, we want to have a transfer to the general, to capital projects based on 3 cents of the tax rate. But that's going to require us to increase that tax rate. And I want you to be mindful that our operating costs are exceeding our revenue at this point. Right. On the projection. So all of that has to be taken in consideration. But as it relates to capital projects, we have to decide on how we're going to spend that $16 million within this 5-year period. And I think that should be our focus.
Yes.
I think you're right, and I agree. And could you just remind me what energy efficiency improvements includes?
Councilwoman, that would be things like the charging center for our energy efficient vehicles. We try to go out, and I'll let George handle this question, but we try to go out and look for efficiencies in the city. Maybe change of light bulbs, maybe change of lighting fixtures. Can I pass that to George?
Yes, that's right. This was an initiative by council to, I think originally actually the program was renewable energy. The city tackled several renewable energy projects, mostly solar panel installations. Then it was broadened to just be energy efficiency. So really the money that's there is not, except for this in 21, I believe. I don't believe we have anything planned for the out years yet. Nick can correct me if I'm wrong. But so basically, it was sort of a pot of money that council wanted to commit to energy efficiency for environmental stewardship purposes, and then staff kind of evaluates opportunities each year and tries to find very good projects to that end. So it's a environmental stewardship goal that's being carried out.
And that's great. And have we been able to get any grant money for those particular projects, or have we looked for that? I'm sure.
Yes, we have some of the projects. The grant money is it's a little bit tricky. There'll be some caveats for the grants that have to be, you have to meet certain criteria. So in one case, we were able to, city was able to get some grants for some work that was done at the senior center because it met that criteria. Then we had a project, I believe the project this year is associated with parking lot lighting in the parks that didn't meet the criteria. So it depends. We do seek grants, but it's certainly not for many of the projects we're considering. It doesn't look like we will be successful in getting grants for those.
Okay. If you don't mind, can I just ask a follow-up question to Councilwoman Harrison's questions on that particular item? I know it's not my turn.
Yes, please go right ahead.
I'm just curious, George, can that, I don't know where it just, oh yeah, the energy efficiency improvements. Can this be somehow categorized as like a smart type of city initiative? Because I've been speaking a lot with the IT committee, and there's something that we plan on bringing forth before council in either December or January. That discussion is still ongoing, but there are a couple grants that are out there for smart city type projects or smart city types of things. And I spoke with Jesse about one of them, but I still need to send him more details. But I spoke with the IT committee about it. So my question is, can this particular project be categorized as something as such to be grouped in that type of bucket? Because there are a significant amount of grants out there for that type of thing.
So, certainly, this is the council's capital program. And as I mentioned, this particular page in the budget used to be titled something different. It was focused primarily on renewable energy. And then I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, it was changed to energy efficiency. So if we wanted to broaden the scope of this program, if you will, to include smart city initiatives, certainly you could do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to say to Councilwoman Harrison and my colleagues, for this particular project, I would ask the council to consider pausing on this one, mainly because I think that this could be categorized as a smart cities. Honestly, I think it can be grouped under that. And with some of the grants that we've been looking at or talking about that are out there to help cities who are looking to become more smart, there's a lot of money out there for that. So I would ask my colleagues to consider pausing so that we can do just some broader research with the IT committee and stuff like that there, and then revisit this particular energy and efficiency improvement, possibly in the next couple months, maybe in January or February or something like that.
I think that's a great idea. And actually, Roxy, I was thinking, in addition to that, we could go through, I was going to ask that if you all wouldn't mind, if we could go through each of these wants and just kind of outline what they entail. So we got the energy efficiency improvements, and that's a great suggestion to consider pausing that. And then if you could kind of share with me what Allen Pond Park, what improvements are we speaking of there?
Yes, because along with that, Councilwoman Harrison, I think what we'd like to do is, because as we go through those, I'm really curious, as we go back to the first one, and from my understanding, what the land acquisition is something that we utilize grants to do. So that's really not something that we financially will be responsible for. Am I correct with that?
That's true, Mayor. That's another revenue source that is provided to us by the state, but it's for specific things. We cannot use that money on other things other than park development and land.
Right. And I was just looking at that 13.5. That again went back to the maintenance of that once we had purchased the land, or was that the contribution that was coming in? I'm just trying to see if that's really something that we should be looking at as part of the funds that will be taken from our general fund or somewhere else to help fund that.
Mayor, that 13.5 is actually coming from the cities. So it's a offset to our land acquisition. That money was originally developed with the HUD program that we have for the land that we have in those HUD districts.
Okay, so that is an obligation that we have, not that we.
It's a source of revenue that we receive, rental revenue that we receive, and we take 13.5 of that and apply it to the grants that we receive for land acquisition as the city's contribution to that end.
Okay, so sort of bear with me, and I know this isn't the accurate term. So sort of like a placeholder, and we know that every year that's what we will be contributing right there to go with our grants that we receive, correct?
That's true, sir.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Harrison, I think your point is good, and if we can go through each of these, that would be great.
Yeah, and then once we hear kind of what is entailed in each one, we can kind of give them a priority, if that's okay with you, Mr. Mayor.
That sounds good. And if you can do that, the staff, if you can go, because there are a couple of questions I have, like Allen Pond Park, and curious as to how much of that, in addition, could we possibly try and get from park and planning and others. But if you could just take us line by line, kind of quickly, not quickly, but efficiently, so that we can all get a better feel.
I can address the question on Allen Pond if I might share my screen.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So you should see a page 1 of a set of drawings. That's an image. So this project is implementation of some of the master plan that was developed for Allen Pond. The part of the master plan is the amphitheater area. So the design work is complete. This is a rendering of the proposed new amphitheater. And so what you see in your budget is 3 pieces. The project was divvied into 3 parts because it's a very expensive project, obviously. So the first part would be the replacement of the amphitheater. On this screen, you see the location of the old amphitheater that would be demolished. The new amphitheater would sit here with this new sort of a bowl for the amphitheater seating created. The second phase project is replacing the existing, what we call the brick house bathroom building, which is close to the existing ice arena, and adding a bathroom building at the site of the amphitheater facility. And then the third phase of the project is improving the parking. This adds quite a bit of additional parking that would support, the park and the proposed new amphitheater. That's what that project is about.
So this project that the council is looking at has actually been deferred a number of years. So as Mr. Lott had mentioned, when we get through with the preparation of the budget and looking what can be spent, as George mentioned, this is part of the master plan for Allen Pond Park, but staff in its presentation to the city council has deferred that project. So it's certainly welcome for discussion.
How's the current amphitheater? What's the status of that, or as far as the building is concerned?
So with that facility, it's still in use. It's very old, so it's probably going to require some work to keep it operational.
Right now, I would guess I was asking, do we put money into it to maintain it, or do we see that it would be we would have to put a lot of money in it to maintain it if this is something we continue to put off?
Probably. Nick or Sally, do you want to jump in on that?
Hi, team. Guys. Hello.
Our thought on that one is that,
I apologize for interrupting. I like the mayor's suggestion of going through each project line by line rather than just going through the list randomly. Do we want to do that?
We are going through it line by line.
Starting with what? The top of my list is the senior center.
No, they want,
No, it starts with land acquisition and then energy efficiency, and now we're at Allen Pond Park.
Oh, we don't want to look at the red stuff as well?
Well, we do, but we're going through the wants first. I mean, yeah, just to kind of, so we can see which of those we either want to just delay or not. I feel like the needs are something that we kind of have to move forward with.
Not a problem. Go right on.
That was just my own opinion. I don't know what you all think.
Yeah, and I think Councilwoman Harrison made a good point early on. She said, we thought we were just going to kind of walk through what these are. Let me just be very candid. I'm not sure that we'll be able to make any real solid decisions today. I think what we can do, though, is get a lot of good information on what we need to do and where we may want to go. So I think just going through kind of the wants right now gives us a chance to really look at those things we know that we can push out, like you're telling us now, and we know that we can have a little more flexibility with versus the needs. And so I think that made it. She's presenting, and we're presenting an easier way for us to just get through the wants and kind of see what we can push out, and then address the needs specifically. Then, is there a problem? Is that okay? I mean, council?
Nope, keep on going.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds like Councilor Gardner was going to say something.
Henri, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. I was waiting for everyone else to finish talking. Thank you, Councilman Harrison. Thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted to go back to the item and just say that being that we are in a pandemic and we are definitely going to receive less money in form of grants,
yes,
state highway user funds, we're going and we're receiving less monies even from our recreational, our rentals and city monies that come in from residents using and renting facilities and so forth, miscellaneous dollars. We're going to receive a deficit or see a deficit in every category because of the pandemic. And as you know, we are already operating with more expenditures than more money coming in. I know we have some wants here on this list, but I would personally, just speaking for myself, and I would not want to fund any of these wants. I would prefer to postpone everything for as long as possible and just maintain our existing assets, such as our rec centers, our senior center, the ice arena, and City Hall, and all of our assets, and to include our roads, maintaining road repairs and keeping the city clean and safe, our trash collection, our snow removal, those things. I think we really should focus in on mostly providing city services and maintaining our current assets. I mean, we definitely don't want to. I know. I could imagine there's no one on the council who would want to support a tax increase during a pandemic. I know that would be looked upon totally unfavorable from our residents. And I really would not want to spend any money knowing that we're going to have some shortfalls and then we are in a pandemic. I think it's just my opinion. I know we have these wants and things, but to be realistic, they're across the world, across the globe right now, people are going without. And I do know that our residents will understand if we're not going to put up a new amphitheater in Allen Pond Park, or we're not going to jump on the Heritage Trail and other items right now because of this pandemic. It's just my opinion that, and I'm really conservative with other people's money. I just rather not spend anything other than maintaining what we have to include our roads and to continue to provide our core services to residents.
I'm sorry.
Yes, that's just my opinion, and that's what I would support. And
understood.
I would like to, as we talk more offline with this, I would like to look at more some assistance to directly impact the households here in Bowie. You know, the federal government and our states are you know, they're really not so supportive of many of the residents nationwide. So I would like us to look at some sort of means of putting some sort of assistance directly into the households of Bowie, and then maybe if we're going to do something of that nature, we even set a criteria as to how that looks. But I do not want to, I wouldn't want to spend any monies and I see the want list. You know, those are things that we really could use here in the city. I just, at this point in time, Mr. Mayor, and I just couldn't support it. And I think your questions, everything that you asked were dead on, and great questions and great answers. Staff, great presentation from Mr. Matthews and Daniel, as well as both our Sally and everyone else that's on board. I just want to be cautious and spending monies at this point in time. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thank you, Councilman. I think we were doing, when we're going through these wants, or not necessarily saying we're going to spend money on, but just getting a greater clarification of what they are. For example, that land acquisition, we know that that's grant money. So it's not something we would want to take off the table. If we're using grant money, we need to use it for that and be able to do that. So, and when we talk about the energy efficiency and smart city, well, that's something that we can look at. And I agree with you on a lot of that directly, Councilman, that, you know, in the middle of this, you know, I consider myself a fiscal conservative, but we're really just kind of go through. And that's why I was asking a question like about Allen Pond. Even though it's out 2 years, the question being, is that something we can potentially work and try and get additional funding? Example from Maryland Capital Park and Planning is the kind of thing, because it's already out 2 to 3 years, and just see if we could actually get them to support that moving on, and just getting that kind of information as to what that was. And I thought we would get those a lot quicker than we would the needs.
Yeah, understood.
Exactly
I agree with you, because we're not going to make any decisions on any of the, I don't believe we should today. I don't think we should do that. I think it's great for us to have that information to kind of process as we move forward and lay out our game plan, so to speak, as we move through the future.
And that's exactly I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, that's exactly what I was asking for. I wasn't saying that we would certainly make any decisions right now, but I totally agree with Councilmember Gardner. I mean, it's definitely something, but that we could hold off on doing all of those projects. But I definitely wanted to get more insight into each of them, so we know kind of what in the future, when we recover, what our priorities would be.
Okay, that works for me. Yes, definitely post recovery.
All right. If you could walk through us those real quick on the wants, continue that way, get through those, that'd be greatly appreciated, staff.
Okay. Oh, was there some more discussion that we wanted to have on Allen Pond Park? Sally, was there any more you wanted to add to this one, or questions the council had?
I'm good with that, thanks.
So my comment on this one would be that if we want to postpone it, we should probably do a talking with George, and I don't have a dollar figure here, but a more of an in-depth analysis as to the safety of.
Sally, we lost you. Oh,
Sorry. So on the existing structure, if we're going to keep postponing it further and further, we probably should do a something of an analysis, a more in-depth analysis, just to make sure there's no safety issues with it before we, totally toss that one. I mean, temporarily, we could, if we determine that, maybe we could put a new skin on the outside of it, make it look a little better for a lot less money, at least temporarily, until a decision is made to complete the project that was originally planned.
And Sally, you're talking about the amphitheater only?
The stage at Allen Pond, yes.
Okay, and because I was wondering about the restrooms as well.
So in both cases, the restrooms are older. We're not having an issue with them at the current time. We, continue to maintain them. We always have options if we do fail to go to some type of more portable structures, whether it's a stage or restroom facilities. They're not as, they're not going to be as nice or as popular, but there are options if we had a, catastrophic failure in one of those.
Thank you.
hey, Mr. Mayor.
I think we can move now to
Mr. Mayor.
White Marsh Park.
Am I off mute? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry.
Just a quick question for staff. To Sally's point, have we done, is this broken out in a way where it's basically saying, or hey, from a safety perspective, this is what we have to do and this is what we don't have to do? Do you have that information?
That's the wants and needs. So
the needs encompass that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to sort of further the point, in these broader wants that are here, Sally made a good point in that there may be an element or two in these wants that really are needs. If an evaluation of the amphitheater comes along and says, we need to do something with this on a much sooner basis, that portion of this larger item may be an actual need associated with Allen Pond Park. If we're not moving forward on the entire master plan implementation, we may have components that have, need.
Understood.
Mr. Mayor, that might be something to flag towards the end. Once we go through this and we decide if staff could probably do another run through and tell us what from these wants might actually be needs, that might be just useful for us to know in the next coming weeks.
Correct. I agree. That's a great point. All right. I believe we're now moving on to White Marsh Park.
So let me get into FY22 for folks. 21, we're already in the middle of doing that one. FY22, your synthetic turf field. So there's a safety issue with the fields. They have to be tested on a regular basis for the hardness of the field. So if it's not necessary to do it, we always continue to push those out a year. So that's a year-to-year situation that we have it tested. If we can push it out, we push it out. But it can't go away totally.
Okay, and is that 810,000 in year two for White Marsh? Is that if we need to redo the field?
So no, there's a $600,000, and that's to replace the synthetic turf field. The second part of that is designing the parking lots at White Marsh are gravel lots. So the other part of that money is to do, I think George can speak to this, more engineering on the parking lots that would be turning from gravel to asphalt. And you see those numbers coming up in the following years. George, I'll let you comment on that.
Sure. If I could grab the screen again, I'll share my screen. Darn it. So as Sally, oh shoot, there we go. As Sally mentioned, this is also similar to Allen Pond. It's implementation of master plan, and the first parts of the master plan is complete. That was the new playground and restroom and concessions building. The rest of it is strictly parking. This is towards the back of the finished part of the park. You know, it's basically replacing this parking lot and improving this playing field. There's another phase. This is the main big parking area that you see when you drive in on your left. It's all gravel currently. That would build this, and a lot of this work requires stormwater management, and that significantly impacts how much this stuff costs. You know, it's not just laying down a parking lot. It's implementation of stormwater management that you have to do when you build a parking lot. And then lastly, this is the Bowie Playhouse. And this would be parking area that supports the Bowie Playhouse. So literally it is three very expensive phases to improve the parking areas at White Marsh Park and some of the one playing field.
Okay, and so with that, and Barry, as I say, I think what I got then from Sally is that we may be able to push out the parking lots and other things. Those aren't major, like you say, needs right now. But we do need to have a reserve in mind, and bear with me with the terminology, Byron, 600K, because we may, depending on the hardness of the field, have to go back and do that. That would end up becoming a need. And so that's good to know. So we need to make sure that 600K at least carries each year, just in case of the change for the field, correct?
That's correct. Yes, you have to do that.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else any questions on that? I apologize if I'm monopolizing. We're good with White Marsh at this point, a good understanding? If so, we can move to the next item, the golf course.
Thank you, Mayor. The golf course project is our sort of latest development in terms of looking at a future for what the facility can be. There was an analysis done in regards to the entire future of the golf course property, and the capital program that has been associated with that was lifted directly from the report that was prepared by the consultants. So looking out into the future, the very short term in terms of this project is looking at the irrigation system. And I think as we were talking about some of the elements that are of need, the irrigation system as a part and component of this overall project is does fall into that category that we would probably need to advance forward. The remainder of the project in regards to taking a look at rehabilitating the greens, in terms of looking at the clubhouse and having the new facility there. All of those are things that ends up being the discretion of the council in regards to what the priority of the golf course is. If we want to be putting investment back into the building, or sort of fulfilling that vision of bringing the golf course into the future and attracting more customers and having a good, viable recreational entity out into the future.
Well, Mr. Mayor, the previous council had us do an analysis of the Bowie Golf Course, determine what it needed to bring it up to standard, since the arrangement that we had before, the people who were running it could no longer and did not maintain the infrastructure of the golf course. The reason this is a CIP project is that the previous council indicated a desire at some point to manage the issues. So the question presented to you all, in particular here, one, is this something that the city of Bowie can afford to do in the future or is willing to do? And is it a viable CIP project considering all the other priorities that exist? For information, the last 3 or 4 years, we put about $250,000 into maintaining the facility that we normally did not do before. But absent some increases in the revenue, or if things remain the same, we're certainly going to get to the point in 22 where we can't afford a $1.6 million improvement in what we call phase 1 there. And so that's the decision you all have to make as to what you want to do with this golf course.
Yeah. Can I ask a quick question here? And that is, I remember at one point when we were talking about the golf course, one of the main things they stated they were having a problem with was their, I want to say, irrigation to maintain the course. Were we able to assist them, or did we do that, or is that still a main issue for them?
That is still a main issue. The irrigation system, George used the phrase before end of life. The pump and irrigation system that they have is beyond end of life for this golf course. It needs to be replaced. The way it is irrigated, the age of the system is far beyond anything that needs to be maintained. It can be maintained.
Do we remember what that dollar figure was? I can't recall it off the top of my head.
It's 1.4 million is what we're estimating. It could come in lower when it's actually bid.
Okay, so that's at 1.4. And again, we'll discuss it as a council as we move forward. But I just think that is an extremely expensive proposition this time to do that, because I believe we may be able to do some maintenance later, but because we don't want the golf course to become an eyesore, i.e. without the proper irrigation and those kind of things. But at this point, okay, I just wanted to make sure if we had done that yet, and we had not. Okay.
And make to move on with the point that Sally had in regards to Allen Pond Park. A lot of the golf courses.
I'm sorry, Daniel.
They're great. You just got to cut them in half.
Denise.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. The golf course, in terms of how it's presented in the capital plan, is more of that master plan in terms of looking at the future of what the golf course can be. There are elements in the golf course in regards to the age of the existing facility, that there are going to be capital demands that cannot be pushed off into the future. But the way that this capital page is presented is more in that sort of master planning visionary look for the golf course.
I think, as council kind of said a little earlier, that could be one of those things that we could take a look at as what really is needed, because it sounds like there are those things we need to do. Councilwoman Harrison, were you about to say something? I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you didn't. Thank you. I was just going to ask about the, I know Sally mentioned, I don't remember when, but when we were talking about the golf course previously, there was some safety issues with the clubhouse. So I also wanted to ask about those, if those were something that definitely needed to be done as well.
So we did have an analysis done there, and certain sections of the building have been closed off, so that the two areas that they're using are, as far as we're concerned, okay for them to use. We put in the restrooms outside for them. It's a trailer type situation, seems to be working, at least for the near term, successfully for them. We've been doing a bunch of work, taking down trees and improving the drainage on the different tees, and that's recommended in the next year budget as well as line items. But right now we don't think there's a safety issue, but ultimately that building probably would need to be removed and either replaced with a new building or a new concept of food trucks or something else to, to do that.
So they're okay for, say, 2 to 3, 4 more years?
As long as they're following the instructions, yes, that we've given them, I would say that they can work around this, yes, at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally. All right. Any other questions? Any other council members on the Bowie Golf Course before we move to some general information on the public art? Hearing none, let's go to the public art.
So public art is the buoy, the great big buoy at Kent Hill Drive when you come into the city. There's a
Sally,
lost you again, Sally.
Sorry, you lost me again. So we're looking at the Kent Hill entrance there off of 197, right by Benjamin Tasker, with the big buoy in plants. We can't sustain that because there's a parasite that's causing these to die. We keep replacing them, but the answer is to do this slightly differently. So it's under public art, but it's a maintenance situation. So we have some designs we're working on trying to do a once and forever, hopefully, situation there. We're working with SHA to more of it probably will not be a planted situation, but hopefully it would still be buoy in some type of large letters. Obviously, we'd come back to council for an approval of the final drawings, but we're partway into that project now.
So we're just trying to change that eyesore there.
Yeah, we need to do it, and it should be a once and done. Once we're done with it, there shouldn't be carryover, over the following years.
Okay. If I could say this just in general to our team, to the council, we might want to put that up, knowing when we drive by what it looks like. We might want to put that in the needs column, as opposed to a want. So.
No, I agree. It's just going to get worse.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that, anyone? Moving right along, the Heritage Trail.
Just one other element to that. So, Sally, historically, there has been $25,000 each and every year for a new piece of public art contained in this item. It's just there's a pause for the next few years because of the larger expenditure anticipated for this current fiscal year.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Daniel, if I might share my screen again real quick. So Bowie Heritage Trail, the project, the money you see in there in FY21 is a segment of the trail. I'll draw your attention to the Planning Department's webpage, Bowie Heritage Trail, which has a lot of information about the entire trail plan. I don't want to go over the details of that, but this is kind of an older project. Some of it's been implemented, some of it's still pens. This is an image, from that Heritage Trail plan. The project that you see in FY21, the 400,000 or so project, is this little segment here between Adnell Woods, which is just outside of the city. So you see the idea of the trail network was sort of to come through Old Bowie and somehow make a connection, to the railroad and the university. But the segment that is in FY21 is from Jericho Park to here. This is obviously on road, so that exists. The part that we're just finishing up is this part down here where the 10th Street Park is. This piece here was completed a couple years ago. So this is the piece that we're working. We have actually not. Going back to an earlier question about have we obligated everything, I should have chimed in that this actually we have not obligated. This is not out for bid yet. I'm going to use it. It honestly was delayed because of COVID, because we have to cross this Pepco parcel here. and we just could not get the easement we needed from PEP. We do have it now, but because of various operational things with PEPCO, that was put on hold. So this particular project is still to be bid. We do plan to bid it very soon.
Can I ask you a question on that, George? Is
Yes,
there
sir.
any, you have the easement now, is
Yes,
there any kind of constraints or anything on the easement?
No, it's we're ready to go now.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? George, is that 411K something that would be done in 1 year?
Yes, it's a single project. Yeah, so it's strictly just constructing an asphalt trail that connects, that neighborhood to the Jericho Park. It's kind of weird. It goes through woods and all this kind of stuff. So it's it's a fairly involved project. But it's just a 10-foot wide asphalt path.
Councilmember Estev, any comments, thoughts?
Sorry, were we on mute?
You were.
No, all good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, thank you. If no other questions on that, let's move to the indoor court facility.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, one of the reasons why this was placed in the launch was because the actual concept of the indoor sports facility, court facility came up as a result of the indoor court component being left out of the original vote for the Iceplex, which included 2 sheets of ice rather than a sheet of ice and indoor and basketball courts. Considering that the ice arena, the 2-sheet ice arena has gone away, and so that makes a bit of an even Stevens regarding we have 1 gym, we have 1 ice facility. This is no longer a need, in my professional opinion, and is a want.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else on that? Thank you so much, City Manager.
So
Okay.
I could comment on this one, Mr. Mayor, that there is a Maryland National Capital has an ongoing project to plan and construct a multi-generational facility in, I think they call it Area 3 or District 3, which is Bowie, Glendale, and Lanham. Okay. So I would certainly encourage council to consider pushing with that to try to have it, serve the needs of the city as well, whether it be ice, whether it be gym space, whatever, that perhaps when they get to their design stages on that, it's a partnership there.
That's an excellent point. And
you take me off mute real quick. Yeah. Oh, Sally?
Yes.
You happen to know, I understand that Maryland National Capital Park and Planning owns some land near where the Liberty Sports Park is going, and that was potentially being considered for the kind of facility you're describing. Do you have any information on that?
I do not have any information on that one. We could do some research on it.
Could you? Because I keep hearing from different folks that could be a location, and given that would be, if not in Bowie, then right next door, that would be could be something that we could help push for.
Yeah, we can certainly do some homework. Like I said, this one is to be on the other side of the city, and Glendale is what I heard was the site, where the Glendale Community Center is.
Also very close, certainly to me.
Yeah, very close to the city there too.
Yes.
Councilmember Estev, are you speaking of the project that the Michael Company was considering? Because I understand that's going to be on the South Lake property, not on the Liberty Sports Park property.
No, it's separate from that. So you got the Michael's concept, you got Liberty Sports Park, and apparently there's yet another parcel of land out there that the county owns. They were thinking of possibly doing something. Apparently 3 totally separate projects in one area. So whoever lives on 301 there is going to have plenty of recreation options in the next 10 years.
I think if I could at this point, I would say that, and we'll talk about it as a council, that we talk with Park and Planning a little more and make sure we get all of their, what they're looking at doing and seeing what kind of conversations we can have to trying to fill some of these needs on what they're doing.
Yeah, that'd be great because I mean, I hear what's going on with Liberty Sports Park, but I hadn't heard that Park and Planning is planning to do that.
Yeah, so that's okay. All right. Any other questions on the indoor court? If not, let's move to the Bowie Master Trail, the Trails Master Plan.
I guess I could speak to this project. This, as it says in the CIP, there's a master trails master plan that was adopted by council a couple of years ago. So this project, again, it's a program, if you will, would implement, would provide the funds for where pieces of this trail needs to be constructed. So right now there is nothing in design. It's all out year stuff. They, as you see in the list there, the original plan is to, simply scope out and, decide which projects should be tackled. So we have listed now, our assumption based on where we think we can easily implement some of the, proposed construction. And the same, just like I mentioned for the Heritage Trail, the planning department has a website that has all the background on this particular program, the master plan itself, several maps that, are available to the public and to you to see.
Okay. Any other questions, anyone right now on the Master Trails? And I think we talked about Racetrack Road, knowing that we'll probably have to be looking at what we're going to do from our legislature, from state funds to do that. So I'm not sure there's anything we can do with that right now, except hold on to that. As a learning process here, I would like to know if the council and staff would be interested in taking a 5-minute bio break.
Works for me, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes, that's great.
If it's okay with our city and our citizens, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break and then come right back, okay? Hey, thank you. Everybody's doing okay?
Fine, Mayor.
Byron, I love the enthusiasm. I would ask Todd to let us know when we're ready to begin, and if our city clerk can see who's on and who's off as they return. Oh, Councilwoman.
I'm here, Mayor.
Okay, great. I will wait to hear when we can get going again. At this point, who are we waiting to return?
I believe we're still waiting for the people in 243.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear you, Todd.
It looks like we were waiting for the folks in 243.
Okay.
243 is here.
Okay, are we ready to begin? Madam City Clerk, are the members of the council back in?
Well, their initials are still up there. Whether they're back in front of their computers, I cannot tell.
Good point, good point, good point. I understand.
I guess if they're back, they could just unmute themselves and say they're back.
Back in business.
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay. And I believe I saw Councilmember Estev.
Right, he's in room 243. I see him there. Councilwoman and Madhu, are you back on? think she's the only one that still might be stepped away, but you do have a quorum again, Mayor, so if you want to continue, you could do that.
Okay. All right, having said that, why don't we, now I think we went through all of the questions on the wants. Did anybody have anything before we move from that and go to our needs really quickly? If no one has any other concern, again, I want to say thank you, staff, for walking us through that. That was very informative and very helpful. So having said that, we may want to go ahead and just get started and maybe backfill Councilwoman if she isn't on. Is that good with the rest of the council?
Yep. Works for me. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll give it back to staff, and I appreciate your patience working with us through all of this. And let's start off with our needs. And I think it would work again if we just quickly went through the line item by line item, if there's no objection from the rest of the council.
None for me. None for me.
Okay. Okay, well, why don't we turn it back to staff? If you could, and help us go through, starting off with the senior center.
All right, Sally, I want to walk us through very quickly on these items. And in general, Mayor, a lot of these items end up being things like HVAC systems and repaving parking lots and fixing roofs. So it is, in general, in terms of the needs, it's more keeping up on the capital items associated with the facilities that we've got. So not planning on opening up each capital page for this, Sally. So if you would run through each of these, I would appreciate that.
Okay, I got it. So the first one, the senior center, this year's projects are underway. That was redoing the cabinets and counters in some of the rooms down at the senior center that are 25 years old, and then doing some additional work on insulation and such at the HVAC system, which we're taking advantage of the building being closed to take care of. So we're almost finished. Those out years are a carpet replacement and a photovoltaic system work. So those are in 23 and 24. Kent Hill Center, any questions on that one?
No.
Okay, Kent Hill Center. Kent Hill Center currently has a number of small units, like 30 or 40 of them on the top of the building, and we've done engineering to replace them, and this is to begin a fairly significant replacement of them in FY23. Okay, Harmel House, I'd have to flip to, I believe it's an HVAC unit, so that's a small Levitt type house. The City Hall, that's a number of analysis that we're doing this year. Give me just a second here to get to the right page. It was the living roof and the roof analysis for the building itself, conditions assessment. There's a charging station in there that's already been installed. That's part of the move to turn our code compliance fleet into electric cars. It was budgeted at 25. I think after rebates and so on, we came in at someplace in the ballpark of 10 to 12.
Okay.
The next year is fire suppression modifications, masonry repairs. The exterior gate at the police department fails regularly. That's being replaced. Again, then there's charging stations for the fleet here. This may well be part of BGE. You mentioned energy efficiency earlier. We are working cooperatively with BGE to get some grants to put some charging stations in various places. And I'm sure Maddie could give you, I don't think she's on today, but could give you a full analysis of that. So that small amount could be something that you can, skip. But they're very small, $12,000, and then 23 is the same situation. But we're well set for what we have currently. questions as you're getting further down there. The building is just aging. We just have to maintain our assets. Certainly, as we do our analyses, if they don't need to be done in those years, they get backed out a year. If they need to be done, we have to go ahead and get these things replaced. We have an excellent building maintenance crew, and they've been doing a terrific job of keeping things going. Questions on City Hall? Okay, the city gymnasium is the next one on there. That is for the replacing of the HVAC system, which we are going to ask this year to move up to 22, not back. We had asked for it in 21. It was pushed out because of budget restrictions last year. Again, it's a 20 to 25-year-old building. It's very hard to get parts. Our concern is that if it fails, it's catastrophic and you'd have to close the building. And during the busy season on COVID time, you don't want to do that. So that $1 million almost there for the HVAC really has to be done. Again, if you look further down the list, you're talking smaller issues. I don't think you really want to go through each one of these as we go. Okay, genealogy library, again, that's a Levitt House type HVAC system, and it's way out there in 26.
Gotcha. Okay.
So William Plains is a property that is part of White Marsh Park, which is in great disrepair. We're working on that now. We're trying to find a individual or a company that might be willing to enter into a lease with us to upgrade it. We're talking $1 million or more to fix that building up. We don't have a real use for it. So as I said, we're working on doing that. If we can't get a company to do that, we'll have to demolish the building at some point. And $75,000 probably will not be enough to do that job. We're getting quotes right now on what the actual cost probably would be. There is an easement on that property, so we have historic trust folks involved in that conversation as well. So we did energy efficiency before. There are some grants out there for that. So you were talking about smart cities, Councilwoman, but we already, I believe, and again, Maddie can give us that. The LED changeovers really are designed to pay for themselves over the years in terms of energy savings. But there are some grants that we're using for those already.
Sally, I apologize for interrupting. Going back to William Plains, if we were magically to get money to do renovations at that building, is there any conceivable use for the property?
We don't have a need for it. I mean, we have several historic buildings in the city. So we as a city feel that we don't have a need for it. We would be, talking to Park and Planning to see if they might have a need for it. I mean, we certainly don't advise spending. We've had a study done a number of years ago, and like I said, I don't have it in front of me. I apologize, but we're well over $1 million in repairs to try to bring it up to snuff, and then you'd have ongoing operating costs to have to worry about.
And there's no special historical value. No one's cited any ghosts there. There's no Civil War cannonball in the wall somewhere.
I'm sorry, it's not clear. Say that one more time for me, sir.
There's no special history to the building.
Well, there is. It's historic significance. I mean, it is there is an easement, and we can share that with you. We can send that to you, but not. I mean, there are several unique buildings like this left around, so we don't like the county historic trust doesn't like us to take them down, but when they fall into such disrepair, it's not always reasonable to expect us to maintain the building and to invest what needs to be done to bring it up to snuff. So. Well, certainly before we would take it down, we would ask them if they're interested in taking it on, which is what we're kind of looking for, someone else who might like to preserve that history.
And I'm guessing it's not large enough to use as an historic event space in the future?
Not in our opinion.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
So just to go on with this, the one major issue with this building is the exterior walls are pulling away from the interior of the structure.
Sounds like a problem.
It's a significant structural issue with the building.
Fair enough. Thank you, Sally.
It's fenced off currently too, so it's basically been closed already.
Fair enough.
Would you like to speak about the facility security. This is an item to the council that we had just put into the budget for the first time this year, after the city has been looking at different options for enhancing security at our facilities.
Well, yeah, we were, Lee Cornwell, and we hired a consultant. I think he talked to you all at one point and briefed you on this project. The COVID-19 activities have slowed down our process here, but we could probably push this out 1 year as a result of that. But we really need to, when we get back to the point we're going to open the facility up again, considering the fact that active shooters and other miscreants who are threatening the security of public facilities are still out there and flourishing. We'll need to get back to this at some point. And I would expect in 23 if we were to push the phase 2 out.
Okay, thank you, City Manager.
Thanks.
So, accessibility improvements, so the ones in 21 pretty much have all been done. We're just waiting on our final reports for the Harmel House, the Kent Hill Center, and the Mansion's accessibility reports, and then we'll be able to have a better figure for next year. The lift at the Mansion now is at end of life, so we're going to have to spend some significant money to bring that up to code anyway. So we'll be spending some money whether we actually change this out, which it may be changed to a different location. We're working on ramp possibilities. Again, it's a historic structure and has to go through approval by the historic folks before we can make any changes. But we are continuing to make sure that our facilities are all accessible.
Okay.
All right, George, we're coming over into some public works related projects. First one we have is our street resurfacing program.
Right, and this program provides the funds to, resurface several streets a year. Also provides funds for speed humps if we have a requirement for speed humps. Right now we're still in the midst of replacing some paver sections in Northridge. So it's basically, significant road maintenance funds. That's it.
Okay. Okay, thank you, George. I'm not sure. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, that's.
So I have one quick thing. So George, I know we talked a little bit about this in the past, and aside from Northridge's brick pavers, I keep getting the distinct impression from the projects that I'm seeing that we repave roads pretty aggressively. Like, I drive around and I just feel like when I look at some of our road repavement projects, I often wonder like if a certain road couldn't go another 5 years without being touched. I mean, is there some way that we can kind of discuss that standard? I mean, obviously I know the Public Works Department feels like they're repaving roads as needed, but I just feel like when I look at Bowie compared to most other places, we seem to be really aggressive about it.
Well, I think it's a well-funded program. If the council wanted us to look at reducing, our frequency, it does allow us to make sure, especially the heavy traffic roads, are resurfaced before they. What happens if you don't maintain a heavy traffic road, then a resurfacing project turns into a more significant reconstruction project where your base of the road starts to fail.
So it's the sort of proposition where we're saving money in the long term by taking care of things more proactively.
Yeah, and I think if we wanted to, to look at a significant change, it would probably, require us to, I think if you wanted us to do that, we would need to bring in some heavy hitters to help us, prepare a report that said, hey, we think you could, modify. I'll be honest, some of the, so we also do the program is resurfacing. That means we take up asphalt, put new asphalt down. There are other less expensive maintenance practices, such as slurry seal, and they don't work in every case. So we, where it depends on the type of road. But in some cases, that's a good option. It's a little bit of a messy option. So many years ago, the city did use slurry seal as part of the maintenance program, and the council didn't like it, and so it was kind of eliminated. But again, if we wanted to look at broadening the methods used for road maintenance and in a manner to save money, we could do that. But I would need to hire some consultant help, to help us redevelop, a revised program.
So that's actually extremely helpful, George. Thank you for that answer. Do you remember what the city council's objections were to the method you mentioned, the slurry method?
Yes. So the way you do a slurry seal is you put this sort of you put like a lot of small, very small grained gravel down, and then it sort of embeds into the surface that you've prepared. While that's there, there's it's messy. There's gravel running around the street.
Oh,
so it's a little bit messy.
I see. Okay. I see what you're saying. If my colleagues don't object, I think it may be worth taking up this conversation in budget going forward. I don't want us in a situation where we spend a fortune on a consultant and end up just doing exactly what we're still doing. But depending on the cost of the consultant, it may be worth just taking a look. If it's 50 grand to study this and to see if there may be some better methods out there that can save us a little money, it could be worth it. Obviously, I think we're all agreed that this is a priority thing. As Al said earlier, this is the minimum, requirement for a government to keep the roads surfaced and all that. But if there is an opportunity to save some money and the consultant's not too expensive, I would suggest without objection that we look into it.
Yeah, I like that idea, and I think in general with the council, if city staff could just give us an idea of what it would cost. To get someone to take a look at that, I think that would be first step, and I think that's good.
And if it turns out we are doing it the best way, then we can rest assured for the next generation that we're doing it the best way, and can say that we looked into it.
Council.
Sure.
Thank you, George.
So.
No other questions on the roads. We can move to the sediment control.
So in general, these next few pages, they see sediment control, Maryland Science and Tech, sediment control, Centennial Park. These are the special taxing districts that, as Byron mentioned, the stormwater facilities in these areas benefit commercial properties and in some cases also residential properties. Typically, a commercial property by city code would build and maintain their own stormwater facilities, but the code does allow for the establishment of a special tax district where the city would take responsibility for the stormwater facility and bill the maintenance costs back to the special tax district. So what happens when you have the benefiting properties as a combination of commercial and residential? The city pays their fair share. So if it was half commercial, half residential, the city pays its fair share. We collect tax from the benefiting users in order so that years and years from now, in some cases, when you have a very expensive project to dredge a large pond, that the money is there. So these contributions are really the city's share of a reserve account so that you are funded in the future for what could be a very, very expensive project, multi-million-dollar projects to dredge, large ponds. And so you sort of are kind of, the reason this is in the need category is because we're already taxing, the commercial properties. This is the city's share.
Yeah.
This separate stormwater management page provides funds to maintain existing, primarily to maintain existing stormwater facilities. So you'll see in there several projects, to correct an existing pond, That's maintenance of existing stormwater facilities. It also provides some minor funding for minor improvements that may be needed to address drainage area, what we call neighborhood drainage problems. So as an example, we recently improved an under drain on one of the streets in the M section of the city that is just constantly wet, and so that allows us to improve the neighborhood by putting in that drainage. So those are you see $35,000, $40,000 a year. That's what those funds are for. They are typically done with in-house crews. Sometimes we'll hire crews, but that's provides some funds to address small problems.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, quick question on this one for George. George, we've already done a lot of these projects, and so far, from what I can tell, Public Works has done, as expected, a very good job keeping residents apprised and completing work on time and so on. Has Public Works gotten any feedback from residents about the aesthetic look of the finished project? Has anyone said, I wish there was more shrubbery or more trees, or what kind of feedback have you gotten from the completed projects?
So I think the projects you're talking about are, the larger Chesapeake Bay projects, which are funded separately from this.
Oh, that's a whole separate thing we're talking
about. Yes, but yes, we have gotten feedback. Because those projects, in some cases, those projects have required, removal of what was literally, almost a forest on the corner of a street. Yes, change is hard for everybody, and so those projects would benefit both up front when we've done stakeholders meetings, and then after the projects, we have had comments that would be, I wish there were more trees. So that increases the cost of the project, and in some cases may limit how much credit we are able to achieve. But yeah, we have had some negative response because of the loss of trees.
Understood. Are we going to be discussing those projects later on today, or are those not contemplated?
It's on the needs list. It's on this list.
Okay. We'll talk about it more when we get there then. Thank you.
We already spoke about the Public Works main facility. What's in that program right now is the fuel tanks, which is already awarded, and next year replacement of some storage building and the salt storage building.
Okay. Any additional questions on that, anyone? If not.
This project only has in the out year minor HVAC replacement project.
Okay.
Byron mentioned this project earlier. This is basically funds that you contribute to the reserve account, and then he applies those funds to the some of the projects that we're talking about right now, if they are facility maintenance related projects, such as roof replacement, air conditioning replacement. This is the fund you put into that reserve account so that we have those funds available to do those projects.
Maintenance, okay. Any questions, anyone? If not, keep them.
Only a couple small projects here. Again, these are replacing an old the pressure washer that we have that's used for cleaning the city's vehicles, and then a couple facility maintenance projects.
Okay.
And as we were just speaking of the Chesapeake Bay program, this is the requirement of our MS4 permit. That requirement is that we had to take a measurement of all the impervious surface in the city, how much of that impervious surface has water quality treatment in its stormwater management systems, and how much doesn't, and the part that does not, in other words, it is a contributor to pollution problems in the Chesapeake Bay. So the permit mandates that the city address 20% of that untreated impervious surface. So these are all significant improvement projects to add water quality treatment to areas that don't currently have it or that are undertreated. And this has been a little bit of a moving target, and I apologize for that, but these are, as we tackle projects, we have learned, basically we are trying to figure out how to do this at the lowest cost to the city. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. So for example, we are planning to tackle a project in the near future that will give us some credit as required by the MS4 permit, but that will also correct some problems that we would have had to done anyway. So that's a cost-effective project. So we also have the rules have changed as related to how much credit you get for certain types of projects. One of which is if you restore a stream, you get a lot more credit than you used to. We use some funds that you provided to us this past year to get some consultant help to relook at our program. But basically, you're looking at improvement projects to stormwater facilities that are required by this permit, and we are trying to identify the projects that we can do at lowest cost to the city.
Okay. Hey, George, when I look at out years 24, 25, and 26, the numbers seem to significantly rise. Is that because we put off things there, or just the nature of the type of projects?
We've put off things there, and that's at risk. So the permit does require that the work be completed by 2025. We will probably, again, we'll work with city manager and the finance director this year, but that's why that's there. Yes, they kind of got pushed out.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, council members?
Yep, sorry, Mr. Mayor, 2 quick questions. So yeah, I apologize, this is the one that I was referring to earlier. So I'm really grateful, George, that Public Works is looking to keep things as cost efficient as possible, especially given that these are big ticket items. 2 quick things. One, on the aesthetic end, I actually would be curious to see what the cost is of addressing the aesthetic concerns that residents have brought up. If we have gotten a particular type of feedback from residents so far, more bushes or more trees or whatever the case is, I would like Public Works to kind of give us an estimate of what the costs would be to fully address those concerns. Only because, as you pointed out, we're digging giant ditches in people's neighborhoods. We don't have a choice in the matter, so we may as well, in my mind, we may as well spend the extra, cash to make sure it looks nice, on the end there. And I just don't know what that's going to look like cost-wise. But if you have an estimate you can share with us at a later time, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, and I can probably do that when we get to working session. And I will tell you, this is our recommended projects are going to change, partly because of what you're talking about. That's part of our learning experience, is that in the Levitt areas, you have to go pretty deep to get the work done. And the result of that is, a drastic change in the aesthetics. So, so really we are shying away from those type of projects now. So perhaps our proposed list will, we may eliminate that problem by doing for example, we're looking at the Gateway Palm, which is, in a commercial area. It will be, it would not affect, the kind of problems that you're talking about. So I'll make sure that I'm prepared to explain some of that when we get to the budget work sessions.
As always, you're 2 steps ahead, and I appreciate it. My only other question, George, is what are the consequences to the city missing its 2025 deadline with the EPA?
So I said risk. So
I know this is on the call. So.
I'm going to have to get back to you. We were actually just talking about that the other day to make sure we understood exactly what our deadline was. So I will, I'll see if I can find out, what level of risk you're talking about. My gut tells me that it's a really challenging requirement. And I think, but it is there. I don't want to speak, the permit, that's a requirement. So if you don't meet the permit requirements, you open yourself up to being fined. So I'll try to get some quantitative information for you on that.
Thank you, George. We'd appreciate it. Councilmember Esteve, any other questions?
No, my only point on the deadline, George, and I appreciate your answer. Let's definitely have that conversation because, as I understand from what I was just being told, apparently a lot of towns will miss their deadlines, and so if it's one of those situations where we end up in a spot where we don't make the federal deadline, but no one else does, and the consequences are not that severe, that may be something we need to consider, just as a matter of fiscal reality.
Fine too.
Yeah, exactly. If depending on what the fines are and what the actual repercussions are, I would be very interested to see what that looks like in total. But I appreciate that.
Can I interject?
Yes, Elise.
I just want to add to what George said that may be true. That many jurisdictions will not meet their deadline, but that won't stop MDE from finding all of them. We've been in circumstances before where we've had violations of environmental regulations in connection with the plant. And they were contributed to by MDE's actions also. And we got no consideration for that fact. And so, there was a time, this is about 10 years ago, where I thought actually they were funding themselves on the backs of local governments. And it was one of my major objections to their program because they sent out this just bucket load of fines across the board to jurisdictions in Maryland at the same time. And so just be conscious of the fact that they won't necessarily overlook it just because lots of folks are doing it. I'm not telling you your plan is wrong or undoable, but just keep that in mind.
For the record, I don't think that Council Member Esteve was saying that we would violate anything or not do that. He was just fiscal. No, and I know you're not saying that, Alyssa. I know.
No, thank you for that, Alyssa. I appreciate that. But I do want to know what the consequences are missing the deadline, because when you're trying to drive to the hospital as an emergency and have to exceed the speed limit, you know what I mean?
Right.
This is quite a lot of money in our budget, and I don't think crabs and clams know just how much we're spending on them right now. But I just want to know what our full range of realities are. But I really appreciate your.
And MDE does negotiate, but I'm just saying. They start off pretty high when they come at you.
No, that's really helpful. That's exactly the kind of thing that I want to get the full picture on. So thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and George, if you could give us that feedback, that'd be great. Good question, Council Member. All righty. Any other questions here? George, I know we're giving you and the staff a lot of issues to address, but this will help us so much as we move down the road.
Sadly, we have a few more coming over to community services. So starting out with the Bowie Playhouse.
All right, so I'm on here. So yes, we're working on in 2021 we didn't have anything projected, but if you saw in 2020 the roof replacement, as we got into that project, we found out the $65,000 wasn't enough. So we are actually going to have to come back in 2022 and ask for money to do that. I want to say we're ballpark 120, 150.
We just lost
we got to fix it.
Sally, we can't hear you. Could you repeat that, please?
You broke up on us?
I'm not sorry. On mute, so can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you?
Okay, my microphone says I'm being heard. So the 2020 roof replacement, when we got into that project, we weren't able to do it because the cost was well in excess of the $65,000. So and we didn't make the deadline to get it back into 2021, so we did some repairs. So we'll be coming back in 2022 with a new figure for that, which is in the 1 to 150 ballpark. So you'll see that HVAC, again, that's kind of depending on how the units go. Or we put these all in at end of life to be able to replace them as they're needed.
So we should be adding in another 150K
Yep.
for 2022.
Yes.
Okay.
So Sally, I'm going to ask the mean question. How used is the Bowie Playhouse?
How used is the Bowie Playhouse? Well, it's a good question. It's fair. Well, obviously right now it's not used at all. Obviously, there's a big question in the world as to what's going to happen to theater groups, you know, as we come out of COVID. So I'm flipping back right now to my Playhouse page to be able to give you some specifics. We have two, what we call in-resident groups that use the Playhouse on a regular basis. They each Bowie Community Theater and Second Star Productions, and they both do about 3 shows a year. And then we occasionally have other groups that come in. I can tell you that in FY20, we had looks like we averaged someplace in the ballpark of 700 hours of rental time in the building across the course of a year, with about 75 performances, give or take, and about 8 productions. So one of the things we are looking into is whether or not there's other groups that might want to come in just for one-time performances. We find that that's extremely time-consuming to bring groups in on one-time performances, but we're still looking into that. So it's not used a lot, but you still have to take care of that asset.
So let me ask this, Sally.
Yes, sir.
Do we suspect the revenue generated from the use of this building, let's forget the pandemic for a second and just assume a regular year. Does the revenue from the building come anywhere close to covering its costs?
No.
Okay. The reason I ask is because if I knock on 1,000 doors, probably 0 people will bring up the Playhouse as like a thing that they value. So I just want to throw that out there as something, and I know that I'm going to get a lot of screaming voicemails from members of the Arts Committee, and that's okay. But I'm fine with that. But I do think we need to have that conversation about this in particular, because this is one amenity that I hear exactly nothing about ever from anyone, except for the people who use it, which is a small group. And that may just be something we need to talk about.
Yeah, it's a very unique, small 153-seat theater. It serves a need for these production groups for sure, and it's a lot populated very frequently by our seniors who are the people that come to attend these shows. But obviously, it's your call. We can make a case for, if you decide you were looking at disbanding it. Certainly, we would make a case for why the pros and the cons of doing that.
Understood. And to be clear, for anyone listening in, I mean, my sister's performed at that theater, and I've gone to many plays there. It's not, and I love theater. It's not as though I just hate the arts. But as I look at that $500,000 number, it's a big chunk of change, and I want us to have the conversation to be absolutely certain that if we embark on this $500,000 journey, we're doing it with the confidence that there's actually a broad base of support for it. And I guess that's just the conversation I want to have.
Right.
So I appreciate that, Sally. Thank you.
Yeah, one of our objectives this year was to look for a third group to bring back in. We used to have 3 groups. Obviously, COVID has put a stop to that. So
yeah, Chinese bat decided against that one.
It is a jewel though in the city's inventory. But yes, it is something that we do not make money in. But there's many programs that don't generate a revenue. So that's a bigger discussion as well, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sally.
Mm-hmm. Again, this one here, Stable Museum, it's just replacing an HVAC, when it needs to be replaced.
Okay.
I think we've done Allen Pond and White Marsh.
So the hiker biker trails, different from the once projects that we talked about with the master plan. This is maintenance of existing trails, with the exception of the 21 project, which was an improvement to the mid-block crossing at Northview near the existing ice arena. So this is all sort of maintenance of existing infrastructure.
So I don't know if you want to, this is way out in the future. Pope's Creek is a relatively small park. It's in, it's kind of inside of a community. It's over there off of 450. It's the access to it's a little difficult. So there's soccer fields in there. We do use it frequently, but we've pushed all the improvements out to beyond in that one. Okay, Church Road Park, the internal drainage, we need to do this one, the internal drainage. The field, there's a drainage system under the grass that you see, and the field, I think it's the lower field, is so mushy when it rains that you can't use it for extended periods of time. So it is something that really needs to be done and shouldn't be pushed out. And the next one is just part of your sewage system. You need to spend some money there. So Jericho Park, there's a program that is starting, a soccer program that's pushing something called this mini pitch program, which often uses like a tennis court size facility, just to give you an idea. We have the property up there at Jericho. We don't have the space. We would have to prepare a pad, and then they would absorb the other costs as a grant situation. Don't have a lot of information on that yet. Staff is looking into that one. Okay, so the Bel Air Mansion. So we have a grant for that south stair renovation work. We've got a water intrusion issue in one of the corners of the building. We've got that right now, looking at what the actual cost will be to repair that. Obviously, we don't want water in the building. We may be able to push the $200,000 out 1 year. When we get that report back, we'll have a better idea what the actual dollar figure is and whether they recommend it as an emergency, but it's wet inside there.
Sally, sorry, this is purely curiosity. Where's the water coming from?
That's part of the analysis to find out why is it coming in there. Okay, so Black Sox Park. So we extended the fence at Black Sox Park a couple years ago. The goal of this program was to allow the adult leagues to play later at night to free up the earlier time slots for our younger people to play, the kids to play. So we pushed the fence back to make it long enough, and then we would need to put lighting on that field. So it's simply a matter of usage on the fields and trying to extend the time on the field. So the 2023 may have some grant funding involved because that's a retrofit. We may be able to get some grant funding to cover that, but the initial install would not be eligible for grant funding to the best of our knowledge.
So sorry, quick question. 600,000 for LED lights?
I'm sorry, question again is?
I'm more reacting. It's $640,000.
Yes, you have to run electric and all kinds of things to the field.
So this is Nick. Good morning, folks. Black Sox Park number FY22 project. Fields 1 and 2 have existing infrastructure. Fields 3 and 4 do not have existing lighting infrastructure. So it's important to recognize that, as Sally had indicated, this is to accommodate the youth programs. Currently, if you look at a Monday through Friday field allocation, approximately 60% of the field permit time is allocated to adults in season. So during your spring softball, baseball season, most of that Monday through Friday practice time is taken away from the youth, limits the youth usage, and is used in for adult programs that have historically run programs in Bowie. So what this allows us to do from a usage management standpoint is free up the 5 to 8 time period on pretty much all of our fields, allowing for Monday through Friday usage by youth programs. and pushing those athletic adult programs from a 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. When they can stay up later, in a non-COVID situation here. It is a new program, so 3 and 4 is a new program where FY23 is a retrofit of the existing assets or infrastructure that is on site.
All right, thank you so much for that, Nick. That's helpful. So,
thank you.
Okay. I remember we did an audit of the users of our ice rink and gym. Did we do an audit of our ball field users? I can't remember.
Yes.
And their residency?
Yeah, we did. Yes, we have that. I can send that out to you guys again. It's about 2.5 years old now, but I don't expect it's changed radically.
Probably not. Okay, I'll take a look at that again, because that's a. I mean, I get it, and I appreciate the explanation, but man, oh man. That's our whole playhouse and then some.
Sure. So the other thing that is also important to recognize is it's a challenge to go into existing parks and light athletic fields that have never had lighting at a park. To go into Buckingham Park, for instance, and start lighting fields would be a challenge. The reason Black Sox was chosen is because 3 of the 5 fields there are already lighted, and it is about $250,000 to $300,000 per field to light an athletic field. That is the going rate. So that's why the cost is what it is.
Oh, and to be clear, I don't doubt the estimate at all, and I don't doubt staff's thinking through this. It's from a policy perspective purely. I'm just kind of reeling a little bit, but that's a council conversation. I appreciate the explanation.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Probably no discussion needed on this one as well. It's a matter of if the units need to be replaced, that's the life cycle of them, but we'll push anything out that we can push out as we go along. So Glen Allen Park, playgrounds have to meet certain safety standards. We take a look at those all the time as we're going along. It is on the schedule to be replaced in 23. We'll obviously take a good look at it, see if it needs to be replaced. We also generally apply for a grant for this program. We can't be guaranteed we're going to get it, but Community Parks and Playgrounds grants have funded many of our playgrounds replacements. So in 2024, the city has 1 tennis court. Even though you see lots of them around, we only really have that 1 tennis court, which is over here at Glen Allen. And we're going to repave it and restripe it and include pickleball striping when we actually restripe that. So we've pushed that out a couple of years already.
So Mayor, that brings us through the projects that are of need, and then as I mentioned earlier, the other need project is the ice arena, which staff is working on developing an RFP to get a good assessment of the costs associated with the capital program for that going out into the future. So there's a summary in terms of the needs. Does the council have any comments in regards to something? Is something misplaced that's more of a want? Is there some reaction to that section?
What I'd like to do right now is kind of open it up to council members at this time to see if there are any comments at this point. I can go through the process, and we'll start off with Councilwoman Harrison.
No, Mr. Mayor, I feel like I have enough information for us to, move forward with how we should proceed in regards to priorities.
Okay. Councilmember Gardner.
Councilmember Gardner signed off. He is traveling, and he just sent me a message. He was boarding a plane.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Esteve.
Yeah, real quick. So my only initial reactions on the list themselves, I'm on board with delaying the demolition of the Williams Plains property, just as long as we're doing what we have to keep, kids away from it and avoid tort attorneys and so on. I do want to hear back from Public Works on the consultant for the street resurfacing, but otherwise I'm fine. I do want us to have a conversation about the Bowie Playhouse. We may very well decide it's worth keeping it. It's just a lot of money for an amenity that residents never seem to talk to me about. I'm sure that'll change in exactly 2 hours. I do want us to take a second look at the lights for Black Sox Park. That's also a ton of money. And I just want to make sure that we actually have a large number of resident users to justify the expense. And those are the ones for me on that list that I just either want more information on or want us to consider.
Okay, great.
Agreed.
Did you say something, Councilwoman?
No, I was saying that sounds great. Agreed.
Yes. Councilwoman Andabumadu? Okay, it seems we may have fallen short of a quorum on anything, but I'm not sure we need to do anything at this time. At this point, I will turn to Councilwoman Harrison one more time to get your feel as we move forward at this time. I'll let you speak, and then I was going to say something, but
No, go ahead. Say what you were going to say.
Because I think what we need to do is get a little more insight. Some of the feedback we'll get, I think, from a priority standpoint, we can just talk in general, but I'd like to make sure that all the members of the council, as much as possible, can participate in making those kind of decisions and that kind of thing. But I would like to hear, at least for right now, with the three of us, the three council members that are still on here, what your thoughts on, because I think Byron gave a good example of how we might want to move forward. The process. So I did want to hear from the two of you one more time, just what you saw.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask that I'll just say something real quick? Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, it's our recommendation that we use the remaining funds from the bond that was relieved when the ice arena was stopped, the construction stopped, is that we use that funding incrementally over the next several years to, instead of transferring $3 to $4 million from our fund balance to pay for the capital project, we take $3 to $4 million from that pot of money, in which and the use would be appropriate since one was a capital fund and the other. That will give us an opportunity to preserve our fund balance and allow it to grow, as Byron indicated in his initial chart. Also, it helps get us through COVID-19 without the need for a tax increase or some sort of cut in either service delivery and or essential project maintenance. That's what I want to say.
Okay, and thank you, City Manager. A slightly different approach is what and we'll talk about these in general, and I appreciated that, is I do want to make sure that we, that additional monies that we have there, that we look at it for number one, yes, not necessarily appropriating for the capital improvement fund, but make sure we maintain for the general fund, partly to make sure for any shortfalls that we may have during COVID.
I'm not sure we can do that, sir, is my point. That I'm not sure that we can use that money that was borrowed for a capital project and place in the general fund. But if we
and that would be great to find out, because the other part of that is we borrowed that money, and I'd like Byron to be able to give me a little more insight, as well as your city manager, on whether or not when we look at those funds in repaying the interest expense on the bond and those things, if we can use that money to do that, because I also want to make sure we reserve it. Now, it'll be a swap out if we can't directly use it. If we use it to replace some of the CIP funds and then use those funds from the general fund to pay that. And I'm not sure exactly the color of the money, so to speak, in my world that we use it. And maybe Byron can give us some insight on that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I agree with the city manager. We have contacted our bond counsel as well as our financial advisors. And one thing that we have two options. One, that money that we have received from the bonds can only be used for capital projects. As far as our bond ratings, it would not be looked upon favorably if we were to take capital money to run our daily operations. So that's something that we totally want to stay away from. That's a problem.
Okay,
So,
I got that. Good.
Okay, so with our capital money, the 18 million in bond proceeds that we still have remaining, we can do one or two things, or a combination of two. One is to use all of that money on the next 3 years to fund our capital projects, as Mr. Lott has indicated. Two, we could invest a portion of that money to answer a call on the bonds when that's due, and we can pay off some of that debt. Okay. That would be the two prongs of strategies that we can use. But the debt service payment is generated out of our general fund. So the only thing that we are technically able to do with the proceeds of those bonds is actually pay down the related costs for the ice arena. Council will have to introduce new legislation per our bond council to redirect those funds to other capital projects.
Okay, but we can use it to pay down the debt, correct? The interest.
Yes, that is one of the options we can do.
Okay. Thank you, Byron. Thank you, Staff City Manager. As we move forward, we've had a lot of information to try and synthesize today. So having said that, and I appreciate that, and how we look at the options we have of moving forward, I think City Manager Byron, you did a good job of helping to further clarify for me. Councilwoman Harrison, go ahead. I think you were trying to say something.
No, I tend to agree with our city manager and with Byron on this. And is it possible, and I know it is, to just kind of get a write-up on all of that, and we can present that at our council meeting, and moving forward with, and if that's only if you all agree to that, but I think it should be a proposal from staff to the council in a write-up at our next council meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Is that how we proceed, Al?
We can certainly do that. I think the next council meeting is is the guidance for the budget anyway, right? Yes. That would be certainly the appropriate time to do that. And we'll certainly put that in writing.
That'd be great. And just kind of of course, outlining everything so it's easily discernible to the person who may not understand budgeting.
Yeah, so we could have, because I think you did a good job of just explaining, and Byron, of the possible uses we have.
Right, I just make sure the public understands.
Yeah, and I think that would really help the public to understand that there are several things to move forward. Thank you. And any other council members would like to comment right now?
Yeah, real quick, Mr. Mayor. So my only major outstanding, I guess, concern is the ice arena, since that's a huge unknown. you know, we may need to consider that a large portion of the remaining 18 million may need to go to either a replacement rink or to a significant refurbishment in the existing one. And I suspect that cost is going to be in the millions. We don't know how high, obviously, but that's kind of my only outstanding question or thought or concern. The only other major one is we may want to, as a group, consider for some of these want projects that are a little bit further out in our timeline, it may be worth considering having in the next, 2 years, essentially 3 years, a referendum on some of these projects. You know, nothing stops us, and we've done this in the past, nothing stops us from putting these on a ballot referendum at the next city election and saying, hey, do you want to raise taxes X% to fund this particular project? There's precedent for that. Other communities do it, and I think it's a tool that we ought to consider moving forward. The next 3 years are going to go by pretty quick.
And thank you for your comments, because, and I think that's something that we as a council will be able to discuss further at this time. I think we're kind of at a point of where we take a look at some of these things, get some of this information back from the staff and all, and then we can move forward on trying to schedule another meeting, another work session to kind of really put in place how we want to move forward with these. Again, I think it's been a great deal of good information. You know, I have some concerns, and I think but more questions, and I think staff with the various things we've talked about today, if we get that information, that could really be a better roadmap for us on making decisions on how we move forward. Comments, thoughts on that, because I really would like to get some of the feedback from them. I think they did a great job of showing on some of those wants, that those are things that we probably need to push out further, considering the budget and other things. But again, that's something I think we should discuss as a council altogether. So I really appreciate all that we've addressed today. I think Councilwoman Harrison, your thoughts as we kind of move down this road right now?
No, I just wanted to clarify kind of what you were saying, because I just think whatever it is that we're doing, we need to move on it, especially in regards to our plan. So I do, like I said, I agree with us having the information laid out by staff regarding the $18 million and how that can be used. I also agree with Councilmember Esteve in regards to the ice arena. And I know that a plan is due from the task force in January.
Yes.
So we can kind of talk about that then, for sure. And we should be able, I'm hoping we can kind of put that to bed then. And we can certainly discuss further the referendum issue, but I totally agree on getting feedback from the residents for any spending of their money. So,
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I think you did a great synopsis of that, by the way, where we are. Councilmember Esteve?
Yeah, real quick. Byron, refresh my memory. 1 cent on our tax rate represents what, 2.2 million? Less than that? 800.
No, about 800,000, Councilman.
Okay, and remind me when the next tax increase is scheduled to go into effect?
Next fiscal year.
Next fiscal year, so coming up the following July?
No, yes, following July.
Okay.
We have well, that's, the program is set up for a 3 cent increase, but we're still having to analyze what our revenues and expenditures are going to be. So we will have to come back to you with the final number on that. I've talked to the city manager, and we have discussed that we may need to review that process again. So we'll get back to you on those numbers.
Can I follow up with that? to you, Byron, or to the city manager. The plan is a penny a year over 3 years. And I think for a perspective, when was the first time the city manager that you financially proposed that we do the increase?
Mayor, that was 2 years ago. We proposed a 3-cent increase, and it was not approved by council. But realize that the finance model that the city manager provides to you always includes a increase to the taxes in the out years to keep up with cost of living and things of that nature. We have deferred that, and that has been good in the past, and we've done that for 11 consecutive years. At some point in time, before the pandemic, we all realized that our revenues were being outpaced by our expenditures. So we have to make some type of fiscal correction in order to keep our fund balance in good posture. However, today's conversation, if we do not fund capital projects over the next 3 years, or during this from 2022 to 2025, we may not have to impose a tax rate, because that transfer to the capital project, as I indicated early, fluctuates between 3.6 million to about 11 million.
Okay. And my question to you one more time, and this is more for everyone's edification. We would be looking at doing that a penny a year over 3 years, or would that be implementing potentially or possibly 3 cents starting the next fiscal year?
It would be possibly 5 to 3 cents starting the next year in FY22.
And Byron, if I'm doing the math in my head right, a single cent for the median Bowie homeowner is about 35 bucks.
Let me
in the ballpark of that.
About $750 on.
For 1 penny, Byron.
Oh, 1 penny. I'm sorry.
You're hearing us all,
yeah,
Byron.
about $300. Yeah, for 1 cent. I was just looking at the assessed value that I was using. I was using a very conservative amount on the assessed value.
Oh, I see. But a single cent represents about $35 for
depending on the assessed value of the home you're using. Yes.
Median home in Bowie, I think, is $350 if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, so it would be 35 bucks for a home valued at $350. Okay. So just so we have a sense of the absolute numbers we're talking about here.
Sure.
Okay. So on an average, that's what it would be. Okay. I thank you, Byron, and I think that gives us a good perspective of what these tough decisions are we have to make. And I think we all kind of knew that coming in, but I think we really were able to quantify what those are and get a true understanding of what the dollars are, what we're faced with, and the hard decisions we're faced with as the council. I believe that again we'll need to take a hard look at what we can do, what we can put off. I think the staff has done an excellent job of helping to point out today, not only for ourselves, but I think for the community as a whole, the citizens, that, you know, there are some challenges we face. You know, we as a city have done a wonderful job in the past of being able to provide the recreation and all the things that we needed to do. But having said that, I think we're now challenged on where we go and how we make sure that we keep the city the place we all love and really keep us on the forefront of all the other cities in the state as well as the country, because I was looking back through and all the accolades about the city being one of the finest places to live in the whole nation. And we want to maintain that. But we have to maintain our fiscal responsibility as well. And so I look forward to us having further dialogue on how we move forward with that. Again, I'd like to thank the staff. I'm not sure there's much we can do right now. I think if they prepare those things and present them back to us, and as we get more of the council members, we can look at moving forward and getting some more answers. There are tough decisions, but I think this council is up to making the hard decisions we have to for what's in the best interest of our citizens. So on that note, I will pass one more time around to the council members if there's any closing remarks or thoughts at this point. And I'll start again with our council member at large, Ingrid Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my closing remarks are just thank you very much to staff. You all are always tremendous. And I certainly appreciate the way you've laid out the information and presented such detail on everything and presenting options that are viable for us and the residents. And my thing is, after Councilmember Estev speaks, wanted to hear if you all had any final thoughts as well. So. But I appreciate you wholeheartedly, and I just thank you so much. And I think this work session was very much needed and very well done. So thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you. Councilmember Estev?
Just thank you to staff. This was really helpful and great timing going into our budget review in December and then our budget sessions next year. This is really helpful.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know if Councilwoman Ndimbandu is able to hear us, to connect. I think she may have had some connectivity issues. Okay, with that, why don't we turn it back over to staff to get some final thoughts from you, because I think it's important. And again, we can't emphasize enough, thank you so very much for your time and your patience in working through all of these numbers and reviewing it not only with us as a council, but with the citizens. So I'll turn it back over to staff.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I think from a staff perspective, we've gotten some good insight today that's going to lead us into our budget preparations. And as was mentioned, we do have an update associated with the budget coming up on the next agenda for the council. So we'll hear a little bit more from that in regards to Byron's presentation. But otherwise, I think we've made some good progress, heard some good things today, and it will be helpful for us in our development. So that's all.
Hey, thank you so very much. Again, City Manager, Assistant City Manager Daniel, to all of the staff, hey, thank you so very, very much. And we appreciate you making the sacrifice on the weekend before Thanksgiving to join us to go through all of this and all the detail and the amount of preparation it took for you to get to here. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you again and a happy Thanksgiving. And go ahead, Councilwoman, I think you want to say something.
I was just going to say, Mr. Mayor, let's not forget our residents. We want to say thank you to them for joining us today and wish them a happy Thanksgiving as well.
Okay. Councilmember Staff, any last?
No, we're good.
Okay, well, again, and I think that's great. To all of our staff, to everyone, and to those who are listening, our residents, but also to particularly the staff and the members of our great city who work every day to make sure that our essential services and everything is done. I would first say, please stay safe. We have a surge. We know that we need to wear those masks. We need to wash the hands. We need to do our social distancing. And as much as we all love gathering for Thanksgiving and other things, we just can't take that risk. You know, remember the small things of trying to stay with your pod. I don't want to sound in too negative a way, but I'd say somebody made the point, I want to say it was last night, they said that empty chair that we'll have at Thanksgiving this year is a good move to make sure that chair is filled next year with someone. So again, I ask all of us, please be safe. Know that we will get through this. I think our city has shown with the leadership from our city staff and manager to the council that when you work together, you can do this. And thank you all so very, very much. And again, stay safe and a happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Goodbye, everyone.